What's going on, everybody? This is Joe Throws Podcast, episode 6. Lovely to bring in my new guest, Carlos Rodriguez. Carlos, how we doing, buddy?
Doing great. How are you, Joe?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Well, let's get right into it. Tell me your story, everything in baseball and what's going on for you now.
So I've been playing baseball since I was about 3 years old. Um, just the normal T-ball, little league, um, and played with like a feeder team for a high school in California, for La Mirada High School. It was Victor Salazar's team. Let's see what else. Played 2 years of high school baseball before getting cut. Then played on a travel ball team for CBA, and now I'm currently at VTSU Lyndon. Unfortunately, had an injury this year, so I'm taking a medical redshirt year and look to play next year somewhere.
Interesting stuff. So, kind of want to go into like your high school, I mean, obviously I'm one of your best friends, but not a lot of people know that you got cut. How was that feeling basically? How did that feel in that moment? And looking back, like what would you do differently?
Honestly, it really sucked. I remember going into that meeting expecting it to happen. I just knew I wasn't a valuable asset to the team, and I knew my time was limited. So going into the meeting, I had a feeling, but just to hear the words come out that you're not good enough to play on this team anymore really hurt. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, as you were saying, would I change anything? No, because it made me the man I am today, where I am very motivated and I feel I have the discipline to use that as motivation to continue playing with this sport, and it's the reason why I still play. So no, I wouldn't change anything about what had happened. I remember what really felt really good was going into signing day my senior year. The two coaches who were there, who had cut me originally, were there watching as I quote unquote got to sign the papers to come to VTSU Linden, and basically it just felt really good. I remember taking that like podium to speak for like a couple minutes, and I just remember looking over and them almost in like shock. And I just remember feeling really good that hey, I had accomplished something that most people would have probably just given up on. Um, yeah, and it just felt really good.
Yeah, that's so what did you do your junior and senior year to like get to like be able to play college baseball? What did you do if you couldn't
Um,
play high school?
so because I was still really close with my travel ball coach, Victor, I played on the travel ball team that he did with the local kids at the high school at La Mirada High School, and I played on the CBA Titans for those 2 years. I had joined, I guess, a sports recruiting site and CSA, and I had basically gone to a few camps, taken some videos of myself throwing, put those on the site, explained who I was. And I got lucky and fortunate enough that Reese Tangy saw me and saw some potential in me, and he gave me a chance.
Yeah, I know NCSA really well actually. I used the same thing, but anyways, back to the point. But um were you just a command guy in high school? Were you never a big did you lift a lot like how you do now and did you just throw or were you, still working on everything that you do now?
Honestly, I'm still working on a lot of things, but I had always been a command guy. I could never like blow people away with my fastball or really anything. I relied on being able to hit my spots. The corners is a big emphasis, and no. I never really taken lifting as seriously as I did once I came to Lyndon. It was just I had always had a bad experience with lifting because of my 2 years on the team. I always lifted really poor weight in terms of like, let's say they were doing 135 on bench for five, I could only maybe do like 95 pounds for two. So I'd always had like a bad experience with lifting, and that's why I never really took any uh, pleasure in doing it during those 2 years where I wasn't playing high school ball. And basically, yeah, I'd really never been a velo guy. I'm still working on that, but I find my 4 years here, I've really grown to appreciate lifting and what it can do, not only for baseball, but in life in general, and how it's such a benefit, and that I think more people should be doing.
Yeah, I completely agree on that for sure. What was like, so when you were playing like your junior and or yeah, your junior and senior year, were you really just like trying to prove people wrong, or were you more just like worried about trying to play college baseball?
It was 50-50 mostly. I would say I was mostly trying to prove people wrong because not many people knew, but in my head, I knew like I wanted to play college ball, and I'd always like dreamed of it. Once I got to high school and I see all these seniors who were going to like Oregon to UCLA, it was always like a big dream that, hey, I want to play college and I guess be one of them. Um, but there was also a part of me that wanted to prove the coaches wrong and that they made a bad decision. I understand it's a business and it's like you got to keep the best guys on there, but it was really personal for me that they didn't see that potential in me, and I wanted to show it to them by going and playing college ball. So really, they worked hand in hand. Um, but at the end of the day, the goal was always to continue to play baseball after I guess high school. I had always dreamed, as little kids do, of playing in the major leagues, and one step to get there was to play college ball.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean that's a great dream. A lot of guys have it. Um, so obviously like, 2021 rolls around. It's, I don't know, July or August. Yeah, it's August. You get to camp, you get to VTSU. Why did you pick this campus? Did you just, talk to me a little bit about that?
So going into it, I didn't really know much about the state of Vermont until Reese had emailed me. Um, and when I looked at the campus, I thought it was very nice. It was very quaint, it was small, rural. I'd always wanted to experience living outside of California. Um, and I remember taking like the virtual tour for it and honestly just falling in love with how small the school was because I'd grown up in an environment where it was a big school, and the teachers didn't really care. And I didn't want that experience going into college. So I remember looking at VTSU and thinking, hey, I can knock out two of my biggest wants when going to college would be playing baseball and living on my own for 4 years, which is something that I'm really grateful for that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really small campus. I mean, a lot of guys do like it. It has its pros and cons for sure. So yeah, so you get to campus, right? Everything you settle in the first couple days. What was your like mindset going into like the fall of your, first ever collegiate baseball? Like obviously you played travel baseball, but they don't practice every day. There's not like the team bonding stuff. There's not the weight room stuff. Like, how did you feel going into that, like mindset wise? Obviously knowing that you didn't play high school baseball your last 2 years. Like, was it weird, or was it like, okay, I need
Uh,
to get, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
At first, I was really like intimidated because all these guys who had come into school had played high school ball and I didn't. And I knew I had a chip on my shoulder to prove that I did belong on campus. So go in those first few days, I was definitely intimidated about the fact that I had not played my last 2 years of high school baseball. So I just remember going into campus. I'd started lifting that summer in June, so I knew I wanted to get in the weight room. I knew that was one way where I could separate myself from people by learning the proper lifts, squat, bench, deadlift, med ball work. And I remember going into the fall, I knew that I wanted to be a top pitcher here, and I knew the only way to get there was to work and to show that I can compete at the collegiate level. And that entire fall, it was really fun because a lot of the dudes who were around, very positive, very cool, to me especially. Um, the team really, I felt glued in the fall, and it was really an easy way of entering life in college where, yeah, you may be intimidated, but you got guys around you who can help you. I remember meeting a guy named Cooper Whitehouse, the GOAT himself. And I remember asking him how he like holds certain pitches, like what he does as like routine. I remember seeing him, I think he was doing J bands, and I never like done those with like any real intent. I had always just done those because I had seen other people doing them. So I remember asking him like what a good routine was, and he just said, "You want the blood to get flowing. Uh, you want to get your arm moving." And I remember starting to do that, seeing improvement. I had seen dudes using plyo balls, and I knew that was something that I had to do. So I bought some, and I had looked up a bunch of like routines and stuff for that. And really, the fall was a learning experience. And I knew that it was a lot easier because of the people that were around.
So obviously, your fall, from what I remember, was very good. Um, and you say you were like intimidated, like, but you shoved like straight up. I think you had like the lowest whip on the team in like 20 innings or something. Like, how did you always, like have that? Like, obviously, we talked about your command, but your velocity was, I'd say, around 77, 78 your freshman year. Were you just like dialed in once it come game time, or were you just always like a timid guy until game time?
I would consider myself a timid guy until it came to game time because I knew that once I got on the field, that's when I can show my emotion. That's when I can really um, lock in what I've been working on. And basically, it was my way of showing everyone that I belonged there. And I knew that I wanted emotion to be a big part of my game while I was on the mound because that's how I relieved a lot of my stress, whether it be from classes uh, or just like school stuff. Like that was my way of like releasing it while I was on the field, and I knew like if I can intimidate guys before they stepped in the plate, um, I knew I had already won, and I had basically trusted my preparation beforehand to basically allow me a good amount of success while I was pitching.
So, yeah, I mean, you did have a lot of success in your fall, but so over the spring comes and you had to like talk to me about the spring. Like how is the spring different from the fall for you going into your freshman year of college?
So going into spring, I feel I had earned the respect of my teammates, um, but on a grander scale, I wanted to show. other people. And I wanted to show these other schools that I do belong here, that I am capable of playing college baseball. So going into the spring, I I guess I felt really motivated by that singular fact that I wanted to basically compete at the highest level that I can. And I knew that I just wanted to kick ass, honestly. Um, and I knew that I'd basically earned a starting position on the team, and I knew that was like my outlet to show the world that I can pitch. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, I mean that's cool. I mean, yeah, your freshman year was good, you know. I remember it like it was yesterday. But, freshman year obviously didn't go the right way we wanted. So talk to me about the summer before sophomore year. Like I remember coming back to campus sophomore year and you were a completely different guy. You were two times the size of the guy you came in your freshman year. What did you do that got you so much bigger and stronger? And obviously the velo came as well. But what was your, routine and going into your sophomore year? What did you do to change everything that you were, from the beginning?
so during that summer, me and my friend back home, Andrew, we decided to get a gym membership in the winter before. So going into summer, I knew, hey, I knew one weakness of mine was strength. And I knew going into the summer, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go lift with one of my great friends. So basically my routine was wake up, go to the gym, go back home, eat, repeat for the 3 months I was there. I remember certain nights, I'm not very proud to admit, but I would make food at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Chicken thighs and rice with a smoothie. And I would down that and go to bed. And during the summer, I really prioritized progressive overload, which I think is really the key in order to see strength gains. So that's basically what I did all summer. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was probably one of the better summers I'd ever experienced, because I'd learned so much and I had someone there basically along the ride with me. Um, I remember eating 3 meals a day with a protein shake, so I knew I was getting enough calories and protein in order to really see those gains, not only in like the size that I was putting on, but also the weight that I was being able to put on the bar that exploded. I think in my freshman year, I could maybe do like 225 for like five, I want to say. And then going into my sophomore year, I remember I could do 315 for like three or four. And
For
those
back
were
squat?
no for deadlift.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I remember, I specifically remember during the summer when I knew my hard work was starting to pay off was I was benching. And I remember I was able to do 135 for 10. And I had a flashback to the summer beforehand where I could barely do 135 for maybe like two or three. And I had a moment of clarity where I was like, hey, like if you continue to put work in the gym, you'll see those gains outside of it. And it really motivated me to see the weight go up each and every week. And eating enough to be able to do that really helped.
Yeah. I mean, I could just tell from like coming back from summer ball or summer into the sophomore year. So yeah, summer. I mean, sophomore year, you talk to me about going into the spring. Like, how did you like you hit? Talking about the velo gains because you had some pretty decent velo gains. What did you do to really get your velo up? And I know a lot of guys are gonna want to hear this because and the what you just talked about before because It's a big thing that needs to happen for a lot of guys on our team or anybody, like weight gain and velo gain. Like, what? Talk to me about what went into that process.
So going into the fall, I'd known I put in the work in the gym and I needed a way to um, put those gains into pitching. So we had gotten a new head coach, Goat Cam, and I remember he had mentioned a pitching coach that he knew that did remote training, Devin Hayes. And I remember asking him like, "Hey, what's his number and how can I contact him?" And he gave me all that information. I remember contacting Devin, and he gave me basically like a blueprint on how I could increase my velocity. And I remember doing that religiously for about from November to like February. And I remember seeing like all the velo gains, I believe. I had hit 88 once according to you. Um, and yeah, what really helped was just finding a dude who believed in me and saw that hey, this dude can gain velocity, he just needs the right training in order to achieve that. Um, so really going into it, I knew I needed to find somebody to help me, and Devin was the dude to facilitate that, and I'm really grateful that he gave me that opportunity.
So, I mean, your sophomore year was definitely, your best year by far, I would say. Talk to me about like how you went about your business sophomore year. Obviously, a little more confidence, I bet. But like before you go out on the mound and like into a game, like what was your like your pre-throw, pre bullpen, and like what was your mindset like before on the game on the bus leading up to like throwing?
So for me, it all started about 24 hours beforehand, where I knew I was pitching, so I knew I needed to fuel up by eating food, whether that be chicken, rice, carbs to get my energy up. Sleeping around 8 to 10 hours before my games, so I knew I was rested enough to be able to do that. Um, and then once game time or game day came, I would listen to music for the duration between before we got on the bus to once we got off. And that really helped put me in the zone of, hey, this is a time to compete. Like it's time to show the world, I guess, and what I would say. Um, Journaling was something that really helped me sophomore year, get my thoughts out. So once game time came, I wasn't thinking about that stuff. Um, so once I got to the field, I would do any sort of scouting from the coaching staff that they had. Um, I would ask Reese or Matthews, hey, what are these hitters good at? What are they weak at? They would tell me. I remember I would sit in the outfield or I would stand in the outfield and watch them hit BP and come up with like a basic game plan on how I wanted to attack them. And then about an hour and 15 before first pitch, I remember I would begin my warm up by doing some light jogging, some stretching. Then about, what was it, like 40? I remember I would take like 30 minutes to stretch about that. Then I would start my plyo routine. That would take me about 15 minutes. Um, and then I would begin throwing. I remember I would really take my time with that. Really emphasis A big emphasis was while I was throwing, looking at the glove, which helped me lock in my eyes on where I needed to throw the ball. Um, and about where am I at? Like 45 minutes now. So about 10 minutes or yeah, about 10 minutes before first pitch, that's when I would begin my bullpen. I would throw about 20 pitches, just really an emphasis on getting a feel for my pitches. I'm a big believer in touch and feel when you're on the mound. Because when you are thinking too much in game, I feel that hinders your abilities because you're too many things are going around in your head. But when you throw a pitch and you feel where that came out of your hand, you can make like small adjustments in that time to be able to like get better feedback and be able to throw a better pitch. So those 20 pitches were really about just getting a feel for what was working today and what wasn't. And then about 2 minutes, I would go back into the dugout. And I remember I would breathe um, for about a minute and just center myself, maybe pop a caffeine pill or two to get even more energy. And then once I'd go out on the mound, I'd do this religiously. Once the final warm-up pitch is thrown and the catcher throws it to second, I would walk off towards third base and I would do the sign of the cross and basically asking God for help. And that was one way that I knew he was there to help me.
That's a good routine. Obviously, I feel like, that had a lot of success. And yeah, I mean, so once game time started, you just were in compete mode. There was nothing else.
Yeah, I remember this, even I would still do this. I would, once the inning was done, I would go into the corner and didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to like focus on anything other than what I could have done better in the inning. Um, and I just center myself again, and just think, how can I attack them? How can I do this better? I would go up to the catcher and just get a basic understanding of like, hey, what's working, what wasn't, and going into the next inning, how can we adjust the game plan to work better? But once the game started, I don't know if I would say I'd blur out, but I would just go into compete mode and not think about anything else.
Yeah, that's huge. I think a lot of pitchers get too complacent, or not even complacent. They get too amped up about mechanics and that stuff. And, I'll be the first one to admit it. I was just like that. And that's what helped me the most, is just trying to get guys out. And I mean, you've done that elitely for the last 3 years. So, yeah, I mean, so junior year rolls around, like, that's the year you got the ankle, right? In the
Yeah, I
fall.
twisted my ankle. Yeah.
So going into that fall, were you just trying to get your arm back on in shape leading into the spring, I would
Yeah.
say?
I had taken the majority of the summer off from throwing because during my last outing, I'd felt something in my back that I knew wasn't right, but I had assumed it was just from not throwing or just from overuse at that point. So I just knew I needed to take the summer off, which looking back, I regret doing. I should have gotten that fixed then and there, but I had taken basically the summer off. And I knew going into my junior year, I knew, all right, let's get back into the swing of things. And I just tried to go back into compete mode again, preparing myself for the spring.
Yeah. And then, spring rolls around. How did that go? How did you feel junior year compared to like sophomore year or freshman year?
Junior year, I would say, was more mentally um, draining from the fact that I knew I was going to play summer ball in the summer, and I knew like, hey, I'm gonna play with some D1 and D2 guys, and I just really focused too much on outside noise, and I'd focused on, oh, how can I go into the summer and impress them with like my numbers going from spring. Um, and I guess what also it just mentally took me out was during the winter, I had experienced really bad bicep pain, and I remember that really affected me mentally. So going into spring with like all that going on in my head, I would honestly say I was too focused on velo and trying to get that up in preparation for the summer because I didn't want to like embarrass myself. So I'd known that um, I'd focus probably too much on that instead of just going out and throwing. Um, so I would say that mentally I wasn't as sharp as I was sophomore year. Um, and I wish I had had that mentality of just going out and throwing because at the end of the day, you have one career. It's like nobody's gonna care a day later, nobody's gonna care like a week later. So it's like I should have just gone out there and threw.
Who were the people that like really helped you during like dark times? Like during your times where you were struggling mentally, physically? Who were those people that you really looked to like help you out?
I would say the person who was consistent in all the dark times that I had ever experienced in my life was my mom. She was there basically every single step of the way. She was there when I got cut. She was there when I first started college. She was there um, when I had injured myself. So I would say the biggest person that helped me through my dark times was my mother. And I truly love and appreciate everything that she's done. I think it's important to have people in your life who help you through those times because when you yourself don't have that confidence or that belief in yourself, it's important to have people around you who say, hey, you can't do this. You just need to put in the work. You just need a little bit more belief in yourself. And I know you can do what you put your mind to. That was a big emphasis for my mom. You can do anything you put your mind to. Um, and that really helped me through times where I was struggling. And yeah, so long story short, I would say my mom has been the biggest staple in my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's great. Yeah. So we're almost done, but I just want to ask one more of one or two more things. But so, your mom's there for you always, and you know, junior year, I mean, it wasn't, it was a little struggle as a team, not even just as like a whole. And then, your summer was very good. You had a really good summer. Talk to me a little bit about that. But what what uh what went well for you that like didn't go as well in the spring?
Yeah, so going into the summer, I knew I was in a similar situation where I was freshman year, where I knew I wasn't the best, and I knew I had to learn. So I went into the summer with a very open mind in the aspect of learning. You can never go a day in your life without learning something new. And I knew I had to have that mentality where I was very visual in how I saw other people warming up. There were dudes from top D3 schools like Salve Regina, from good D1 schools like Elon, and Charleston Southern, good D2 schools like Assumption. So I knew these dudes knew something that I could learn and basically pick their brains at. And there were a lot of things that I had learned from them. New plyo drills, how to properly throw, good nutrition. So I had gone into the summer with a very open mind, and because of the fact that I knew I wasn't the best, I guess I went into it with a very like open mindset where it's like, hey, like I may not be the best, but I'm gonna try and compete to the best of my abilities, and I'm gonna try and show them again. It all comes back to I want to show them that I belong there. Um, and I basically went in with a very competitive mindset. I had got in with a very um, open mindset of, hey, I'm here to compete and show that I can also pitch at a high level. Um, so basically, again, I went into the summer with a very open mind, learned a lot from them, loved every minute of it. I remember going into the summer, um, I dreaded going to that place because of just that fear of not being able to live up to what you set your goals up to be. Um, and I'd known like, oh God, like what if I just get shelled? What if I just like don't make it out of an inning? What if they cut me or something? But once I got to meet all the dudes, I had realized that hey, they were baseball players as much as me. They were dudes looking to have fun and play baseball at the same time. So I'd known going into it, hey, like I'm just here to play baseball, honestly. Like at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's what me and them had in common. We just had a love for the sport and wanted to continue playing into the summer.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I mean, you had a great summer. I remember looking at all that stuff and you shoved for sure. Big stuff right there. But I just want to ask one last question before we have to end. But so obviously, I remember when we were playing catch and you felt something in your elbow and I know this is a little like a hard topic. I don't want to, you know, ask something that, gets you a little emotional, but is it how's it going? How's that stuff going, with your arm and stuff? Is how was that from the beginning to like the fall to now? How much different do you feel going into like for next year wherever you go?
Going into it, it sucks. Real like having somebody tell you that, hey, you can't throw during the season. Like as a pitcher, that's what you want to do. That's the name of the game. Like you're there to throw. So there was definitely a few dark days where I just didn't feel like it at all. But I knew God had a plan, and I knew that this wasn't happening to me for just shits and giggles. I knew there was a plan at the end of the day. So I trusted in him and tried to learn, basically start from scratch, like learn how to properly throw, learn new ways of throwing, new ways of training. Um, so it was definitely tough, but the one thing I got from it was that, again, having an open mind really helps. And I would say the process right now, it's still a little slow, but I can definitely see progress, and wouldn't have it any other way because at the end of the day, like I'm just here to play ball and trust in God and that He has a plan for me in this game.
Yes, sir. That's huge. You know, yeah, I think you'll come back stronger for sure. I believe in you. So, you know,
Thanks,
Carlos,
bro.
I appreciate you coming on the pod, man. It was awesome. Great stuff.
Great talking with you, Joe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Guys, please go hit up C Rod on his Instagram. I don't know if he has an X. He probably has TikTok, all that stuff. Hit him up. Young guys, ask him questions about throwing harder, lifting. Yeah, I mean, that's all I got. Thanks, Carlos.
Thanks, cutie.